Associate Professor of National Security and Strategic Studies at Curtin University. All right, Alexey, tell us about some of the gains that Ukrainian forces have been able to make. How significant are they?
Look, I mean, the Ukrainians have been quite successful in targeting river crossings over the Dnieper River, which can, should they be entirely successful, because we need to also recognize that despite the video footage that we've seen just a few moments ago, the bridges haven't collapsed, but traffic has stopped, and that obviously creates logistical difficulties for the Russian forces, which are massed near Kherson and in other regions of the Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. So far, the Ukrainian forces attempted a number of attacks, land attacks against the Russians in the region, but we need to recognize the difficulty concerning the local terrain. It's an open steppe. It's a plain terrain, little coverage, no place to hide. And the moment the Ukrainians launch the offensive, the Russians simply suppress them with superior firepower. So for Ukraine to achieve gains on the battlefield, not just by successfully attacking Russia's logistical supply routes, they need more firepower, including more HIMARS, more howitzers that they continue to receive from the West, but not in quantities that would be sufficient to overwhelm the Russian defenses. But there is still expectation and hope, in fact, that the Ukraine may actually send more reinforcements, and they will try to succeed in taking back the Kherson as well as the Zaporozhye regions.
And what do you make of Russia taking over this Volodymyrsk power station that supplies electricity to the entire Donbass? This sounds like it could be disastrous.
Look, I mean, in terms of actual gain, it's a tactical success because the Russians advanced by a few kilometers deep into Ukrainian controlled territory, but the capturing of Uglegorsk power plant obviously is a significant gain because it's one of the critical elements of infrastructure that Russia was capturing gradually one by one. I mean, we need to remember that going back to the discussion about Zaporozhye, this is where Ukraine has its largest nuclear power station, the Zaporozhye nuclear power station, which is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. So Russia is now in possession of yet another strategic assets that generates electricity. So the Russians, in effect, gain access to two critical assets that are responsible for over 20% of all the energy supplies that Ukraine used to generate prior to the war for itself. They can effectively and are likely to effectively deny the supply to the Ukrainian-controlled territory of Ukraine, but that would certainly assist Russia with its post-war reconstruction projects inside the territories that they have seized from the Ukrainians.
Got it. And you know, some of the gains, or we should say, taking back of territory that Ukraine has been able to do in the last few weeks, some analysts have attributed that directly to the U.S.-supplied HIMARS system. Do you see that as a game changer, not only so far, but moving forward, if Ukraine is able to keep that up?
Look, I mean, let's put it in perspective again. I think those specialists who would say this, well, they probably have problems in recognizing what military strategy tactics as well, and indeed the equipment is all about. HIMARS is a very accurate and a very lethal system, but the sheer numbers that Ukraine received so far, we're talking about a dozen of the systems, which are thinly spread over the front line of 2,500 kilometers. They do not change the weather overall because they can allow the Ukrainians to hit certain targets. And we talked about, for example, the Ukrainians been successful in using those systems in attacking bridges,
Right.
but that really doesn't change the balance of forces on the battlefield. Even if the Ukrainian authorities suggest that in order for them to successfully repel, not mount a counteroffensive, but repel Russia's continuous attacks, they need not a dozen, but at least 60 of those systems, if not more, because currently they're moving them from point 1 to point 8, trying to first of all, hide them from Russian attacks because the Russians have been targeting them, and
Yeah.
secondly, trying to use them in certain bases. But to mount a counteroffensive, the Ukrainians say that they need at least 100 of those systems, not a dozen. So again, we need to get the reality check.
All right. Those are excellent points, Alexey. Thanks so much for putting this into broader perspective for us.